Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. I'm here with Saleem Ahamed from Plastic Bank. I'll let him introduce myself, but really quickly, I will say a few things about myself and Maru Matchbox. We are a full-service marketing, research, and insights organization. We're probably the first in the world with a fully flexible model with our own technology, our own online panels, and our own in-house research expertise focused on System 1 and behavioral insights. We help organizations like Plastic Bank and like many others who might be on the call here today help to connect with customers and really understand not just what they say, but why they do what they do and how they feel, behave, and think. Saleem Ahamed from Plastic Bank, I'll let you introduce yourself and your role in your organization.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks, Stacey. Great to be here. So I'm working at Plastic Bank. For those of you who don't know who we are a social enterprise that is focused on stopping ocean plastic. We have a two-part business model. So the first part is that we are going into coastal communities and setting up ethical plastic recycling ecosystems that incentivize collectors to collect plastic that would otherwise be bound for the ocean. We pay these collectors a bonus for their efforts, so a bonus above the commodity rate for plastic. And this increase in income not only empowers them financially, but allows them to start planning their lives and lifting their families out of poverty. We in turn take that plastic, we reprocess it, and we brand it as social plastic, and we reincorporate that back into the global supply chain as part of a circular economy. And social plastic can now be found in products around the world as part of new packaging and new product solutions.
So that's really interesting, and I'm personally fascinated by this idea of social plastic. Can you tell us a little bit more, Saleem, about what it really is, what it means, social plastic?
Yeah, so there's a big trend towards sustainability right now, right? And companies are looking for ways to be more responsible as they develop and deliver goods and services to their consumers. So beyond the product, beyond the brand, they are starting to feel a need to also give back in some way as part of a CSR or corporate social responsibility program. So one of the ways that global companies are looking to do this is by reducing the use of virgin plastic, right? So plastic has become ubiquitous, it's taken for granted, it's part of our lives, but it's also part of our problem, right? And companies want to start doing something about it by reducing their need for it. And that could either mean using less plastic in products, so using things like paper. It could be using increased recycled plastic in their products, right? Now, the challenge with recycled plastic is today, the demand for recycled plastic is 16 times more than what is currently available in the world, okay? 16 times more. So there is definitely engagement and commitment to do something about it. The problem is there isn't enough available. There's enough plastic available. There's 8 trillion tons available, okay? That's like 50 million elephants worth of plastic in the world that's available, but it's not being accessed, right? So what is social plastic? Social plastic is not just recycled plastic. It's plastic that has been proven to deliver impact as part of its resourcing, right? So through our model of providing incentives to collectors, we are not only providing environmental impact, but we're creating social and economic impact as well. And we want to recognize that in the value of the product so that brands, as they look at this, they're not looking at this as a commodity, but they're looking at it as part of their value proposition, right? Part of their purpose that they're offering their consumers.
Yeah, so how would you say that companies and consumers are responding to this idea of social plastic?
So look, I think the level of engagement is tremendous, right? We already have over 180 brands around the world who are using either some form of social plastic or participating in our impact programs. The way we've designed our model is that you don't have to use plastic to be able to participate. You can still participate in the social impact programs, right? So there's tremendous engagement, but there are challenges as well, right? Because this is inherently more of an expensive proposition than commodity recycled plastic, which is even more expensive than commodity virgin plastic,
Right.
right? So the challenge is, how do you shift the conversation from one about price to one about value? Because this is really a value proposition. It's not a cost component, right? And as organizations start to appreciate the need to focus on value, and that's what branding is all about, right? Value. They get increasingly engaged. So you're starting to find brands who today you can buy consumer products that are made out of recycled plastic. And you know, on the bottom it says what kind of recycled plastic it is. Brands that are using social plastic are putting a social plastic badge right on the front of the product. It's not a feature, it is a branded ingredient, meaning that they are recognizing that part of the value proposition that they are offering is not that they clean your hair better or make your clothes smell better, but that in doing so, you're making a difference in the world. And they want their consumers to know that the brand stands for those values and that the consumer can participate in that impact by choosing that brand as well. So it's really a shift in traditional branding, going from product to brand to meaning to purpose.
What impact do you think that's having, like at the shelf level, at the point where consumers are making decisions?
Yeah.
What does that branding do, and how does it change the current consideration funnel?
Yeah, I mean, look, the easy answer is to say that it's driving disruption, right? Now, I'm going to make a provocative statement. I'm a career consumer products marketer, right? I believe in branded goods, but at the end of the day, a branded good is a commodity until you can differentiate. Shampoo is shampoo, detergent is detergent, okay? And when you're standing at the shelf and you got to figure out which shampoo do I want, and you have 1,000 bottles to choose from, the first thing you have to do at that first moment of truth is drive engagement. How am I going to stop someone and make them consider me for a purchase, right? And if I can ladder up from functional attributes to emotional, I start to provoke that consumer, right? That I'm not just buying a functional attribute, I'm buying meaning. That's a big value proposition, even for a product like a shampoo or a bar of soap that you don't even think about when you buy. You know, you're just auto tune. I'm going to buy that one. But to disrupt you at shelf is going to provoke me into thinking about what is the meaning of this. And for consumers who are engaged, who are increasingly looking for more meaning, and we're seeing that particularly now with the pandemic, right?
Yeah,
Where
that
we're
was
looking
going
for,
to be my next question. Like, is
yeah,
the pandemic really having an impact on this demand for, or the whole idea of sustainability or
for
social responsibility?
sure, for sure. I think the pandemic has given people at large, consumers, the opportunity to step back and think about what is really meaningful,
Right.
right? What is relevant and meaningful for them? Where do they want to put their efforts, right? And if you can engage, if you can simply vote by choosing a product or a brand that you would already have bought, knowing that it also enables you to do something, um, it's a tremendous opportunity to drive engagement. And that's also a challenge for branding, right? It's not just about trial and repeat, it's about loyalty and advocacy. If you can get your brands at the loyalty and advocacy stage, they're with you for life and they're going to go and tell their friends. And recommendation is the strongest driver for
Right.
trial.
Yeah, those are some big ideas, that a brand could drive engagement or advocacy even, or participation in something, more meaningful. These aren't typical brand benefits.
No,
Like, yeah, can you tell
they're,
us more
they
about what
are. So
makes a difference?
look, on a more mature brand, they are, right?
Mm,
But most consumer products, FMCG, fast moving consumer goods, operate at the lower end of Maslow's hierarchy. They're still trading on functional benefits, new flavor, new smell, new scent, new delivery format, right? They're not offering meaning. They're just offering transactions for the consumer,
mhm.
right? But if you look at a brand as something that is part of your consumer's life, you're always there with them, right? It gets you to think about how you can deliver meaning in a different way, right? I mean, this is a crazy example. So one of our companies that we're working with is a a manufacturer of disposable pens, right? And pens you get in hotels all the time for free, or you don't even know where you get these. You always have pens at home, right? And they said, our pens are made out of plastic. Can we make them out of social plastic? And it's such a low engagement product that consumers don't even know how much these things cost. How much does a pen cost? Like $1? I don't know, right? And I said, you know what? I think you should write on your pen, don't write made with social plastic. Write, every time I use this, I'm saving 8 bottles from hitting the ocean. And they said,
Mm-hmm.
well, why would I write that? And I said, because every time I use this pen means that I'm not getting another pen or buying another pen. I'm using this one. I'm actively engaged in a behavior change every time I use this pen. Now, it's very conceptual, but the point is to say that we're trying to shift consumers' behaviors, not just their attitudes. Everyone understands the problem of ocean plastic, right? Or plastic pollution. But what are you going to do about it? If I can show them that their choice, not just for buying, but using, is allowing them to participate every time they use, that's going to drive engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very sophisticated brand proposition that is more than, hey, now get 20% free if you buy this.
Right. Sounds like there might be a little bit of education involved in this concept too. Is that part of what social plastic is about?
It has to be, right? Because so with any kind of brand building, you have to drive awareness and education and understanding. And that's part of what we are doing in building the social plastic brand, but that's also what our partners are doing, right? As
Mm,
they start to use this as a branded ingredient, a lot of their marketing efforts are demonstrating why have they chosen social plastic as opposed to recycled plastic. And what does social mean? What is the impact that we're actually delivering? And it starts off at the functional level. How many bottles did we prevent from hitting the ocean? How many kilos did we collect? To how many lives were impacted? How many collectors? How many family members? How many kids went to school? How much water was provided? How much health insurance? These are things that we take for granted. But when you're living it on $2 a day, if you can't even get to the next meal, you're not going to care about the ocean, right?
right.
So it's a direct impact and it's part of a brand story.
Yeah, and how do you communicate all of those benefits of, social plastic above and beyond, let's say, regular recycled plastic?
So the brands are incorporating that into their claims, which they start right on their packaging.
Mm-hmm.
So the purchase of this bottle will prevent 8 bottles from hitting the ocean, as an example, or 10, or whatever that calculation is. So they calculate what their plastic footprint is, how much plastic was used in the making of this, and there's an immediate offset, which allows them to be either neutral or positive if they claim back more than they're actually impacting. That's a functional claim. And
Mm-hmm.
then some brands are saying, beyond that, I want to create a specific social program. So I want to support kids going to school. I want to support life insurance. And they translate that into purchase claims or annual targets. And they say, like, your purchase of this allows you to help save 10 million bottles this year. We're committed to doing that. And they're
Mm-hmm.
allowing their consumers to engage in that effort as part of their regular consumption.
Wow. So it sounds like you know a lot about purpose-driven brands and helping brands, define their purpose. What advice would you give to other marketers about designing or leveraging purpose as a branding exercise?
Look, I think it's understanding what your brand is at the core, right? What are your functional and emotional attributes? And then
Mhm.
ensuring, as you start laddering up, that you remain true to your core value proposition. The risk in what we are doing is greenwashing, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
say we're just doing this because it's the right thing to do. Do it because it makes sense for your brand to participate in this. And it has to be done in a credible, relevant, meaningful way to your consumers, because they will sniff that out right away
Mhm.
if it's not
Mhm.
true. So being true to your brand value proposition for me is the critical thing.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like what's the difference between an authentically purpose-driven brand and a brand that comes off as greenwashing?
You know, I think like so we've worked with brands in all like across consumer segments to show how you can very authentically tie a social impact claim to a product or a category that consumers don't even think about. Okay,
Right.
I use shampoo as an example or soap because it's a commodity, right? That people don't think about. But if you can show that every time you buy this soap, you're making a difference in a meaningful way, it's authentic. I'm not saying to you, the consumer, you are saving $10 million or you're saving Maria's life. I'm not saying that's not believable, right?
Right.
But what I
Right.
can say is you're helping make a difference. Even
Hmm.
your 8 bottles that you prevented is making a difference, is allowing me to feel involved because I want to help, but I don't want to write a check because I don't know where that check is going. But if I can do that in a way that I'm normally transacting anyway, that makes me feel great and it makes me feel engaged. What is not authentic is if I try to tie you to a claim that is not believable, right?
Right.
We are saving the world. Okay, right? That's probably a little too high, right? But something as simple as translating into number of bottles, I understand that, right? It's even language. If I say kilos, anything more than a couple of kilos, I don't understand what that means anymore.
Right.
So that's just a technique of, price value reframing that you learn in, marketing 101. So
Hmm.
those principles remain true here as well.
So thank you, Saleem. I don't know if there are any questions from the wider audience.
There are a few questions.
Great.
Let me just open them up. First question is, how would you increase awareness of this?
Right, that's a great question. So we are actually working on it right now. Our focus has been on the B2B side to drive awareness to potential partners who can support either the ecosystem collection or the purchase of social plastic. We need to keep that supply chain capability running and growing because that's the core of what we're doing, and that requires engagement with business partners, right? So that's the first thing, and that is purely sales driven with a bit of marketing halo, right? The second, I guess, stream that is coming up is consumer awareness. Consumers need to be aware of what social plastic is. So when they start to see this claimed in store, they will have heard of it. They may not necessarily know exactly what it is, but there has to be some level of recall of oh, I've seen that somewhere before. And that is something that we're building up. It's still very early days on the consumer side, but it is starting to come. We're starting to see that consumers are more and more aware. And we're doing this prudently, right? So we're doing it through PR and we're doing it through digital and social media channels. In the old world, we would have blasted this on TV, but I don't think marketing anymore uses such a blunt hammer, right? To just go with TV to drive awareness. The whole model is about awareness that drives action, right? So a key part of our messaging is everything we do has to drive engagement or some sort of action, either on the B2B side or the B2C side. So we have to be more deliberate about the channels that we choose.
Thank you. I have another question from the audience. Someone asked, I understand you are dealing with PET, basically plastic bottles, and that is just a fraction of the problem. What are you doing with the rest of the plastic that is found in the regions that you operate?
We actually collect all kinds of plastic, right? So there's a global commodity rate assigned. There's an index for all plastic types, and that varies on a daily basis. It's a market index. And on top of that, we provide a fixed bonus for all volume collected, but we absolutely collect all plastic types. The one plastic that's challenging is multi-layer plastic. So in a lot of developing countries, they don't have the standard bottle packaging that we have. They use sachets to create smaller purchase sizes at lower cost for consumers. Those sachets, like a ketchup container, right, or a sample pack, that's made out of multi-layer film, which is very, very difficult to recycle, right? And even globally, the technology to recycle that kind of plastic is not super established. So the challenge with that kind of plastic is to really work with manufacturers to shift their products away from multi-layer film and into traditional plastic. But to answer your question, we do collect all kinds of plastic, and our model anticipates going beyond plastic as well, looking at metals and cardboard, etc., as we continue to grow.
Thank you. One other question. Do you think there will be government support to drive consumer awareness, or do you think it is necessary for government support?
So another great question. Look, it's there. For this to be successful, it requires engagement from, a broad set of stakeholders. That includes government, it includes policymakers, it includes industry associations, it includes businesses, it includes consumers and collectors, right? The reality is this is our shared responsibility, right? We all enjoy these products when we use them. We have to be responsible for what happens after as part of the life cycle. So everyone has to be involved, and governments can be involved not just in terms of awareness, but in policy making and creating regulations. And we see this, in North America now with directives on the use of single-use plastics, right? It's driven from the top, and consumers are buying into it, but now they have guidelines they can adhere to. And in the middle, you have the manufacturers who have to look at different ways to still provide forks and straws and spoons and packaging bags in different ways that still allow us to meet the consumer need, but in more responsible ways. And by the way, we're not saying don't use plastic, right? We're saying use it responsibly. And when I say use, it's use over the life cycle, not just that first consumption piece. But yes, governments absolutely need to be involved.